What nobody talks about is how the biggest basketball revolution of our lifetime isn't happening on any court. It's happening in conference rooms between Adam Silver and international power brokers, and the ripple effects will change everything you think you know about professional basketball. The NBA just dropped a timeline that has European basketball executives either celebrating or panicking. By 2027, maybe 2028, there's going to be a completely new professional league across the Atlantic. Not another failed expansion attempt, not some developmental side project. A full-scale, NBA-backed European powerhouse that's about to flip the entire basketball ecosystem upside down. But here's what most people miss when they hear European League. This isn't the NBA being generous or sharing the wealth. This is the most calculated business move in basketball history, disguised as international cooperation. See, while fans were debating whether LeBron or Jordan was the GOAT, Silver was quietly orchestrating something way more significant. He wasn't just thinking about the next season or even the next decade. He was looking at the global basketball map and realizing the NBA had a European problem. Europe produces elite talent. We're talking Luka, Giannis, Jokić, guys who dominate MVP conversations. But all that talent development, all that fan passion, all those sold-out arenas from Madrid to Belgrade, the NBA was getting the players, but none of the infrastructure revenue. Meanwhile, EuroLeague was sitting pretty as Europe's premier competition, building their own identity, their own stars, their own massive television deals. Silver looked at that situation and saw a threat most people couldn't even imagine. Think about it this way. What happens when European basketball gets strong enough that their best players don't need to come to America? What happens when EuroLeague becomes prestigious enough to compete with the NBA for global attention? Silver saw that future coming and decided to cut it off before it could materialize. But there's another layer to this that makes it even more fascinating. This isn't just the NBA trying to muscle into Europe solo. They partnered with FIBA, which is basically basketball's version of FIFA. And that partnership tells you everything you need to know about how serious this really is. FIBA controls international basketball. They run the World Cup, the Olympics, all the qualification tournaments that matter. When they shake hands with the NBA, they're not just creating a league, they're legitimizing American basketball's right to operate in Europe at the highest institutional level. But here's where it gets wild. The structure they're planning isn't some American franchise system dropped into European cities. It's way more sophisticated than that. 16 teams total, but only 12 permanent spots. The other 4? Those rotate based on performance from existing European competitions. That means Real Madrid, one of the most successful basketball clubs in European history, might have to earn their way in every single season. Imagine the Lakers having to qualify for the NBA each year based on how they performed the season before. That's the kind of competitive pressure we're talking about. And this rotating system isn't just about fairness, it's pure genius from a business perspective. Every year, different cities, different fan bases, different television markets get pulled into the NBA orbit. It's not just 16 teams they're capturing, it's entire national basketball ecosystems. Here's where the story takes a turn that nobody's really talking about yet. Right now, European players have basically one path to basketball's highest level: get drafted by an NBA team and move to America. That system worked fine when we're talking about a handful of international stars per decade, but we're not in that world anymore. Look at the last few draft classes. International players aren't just getting selected, they're going in the lottery consistently, and it's not just the obvious basketball powerhouses like Spain or Serbia. We're seeing talent emerge from countries that barely registered on basketball's global radar 20 years ago. This new European League creates something that's never existed before, a legitimate alternative to the NBA that's still connected to the NBA. Players can develop in their home countries, play in front of their home crowds, earn serious money, and still be positioned for an NBA move if that's what they want. But more importantly, they don't have to want that anymore. The NBA isn't stupid. They know some of the world's best players might prefer to stay in Europe if the competition and compensation are right. Instead of losing those players to European leagues they don't control, they're creating a European league they do control. It's basketball's version of Amazon acquiring companies instead of competing with them. Why fight European basketball when you can absorb it? And this is where the timeline becomes crucial. Silver keeps saying 2027 is ambitious, but they don't want to wait past 2028. On the surface, that sounds like normal business planning, but dig deeper over and you realize they're racing against something specific. The current EuroLeague format is locked in through the 2025-26 season. After that, there's going to be restructuring regardless. The NBA isn't just trying to launch a competing product, they're trying to launch it right when European basketball is naturally reorganizing anyway. It's like showing up to bid on a house you know is going up for sale before the seller even puts it on the market. The NBA is positioning themselves to be the solution to European basketball's next evolution rather than fighting against whatever that evolution becomes.
Plus, there's a generational factor that's absolutely critical. The kids who are growing up watching Luka and Giannis dominate the NBA, they're going to be the core fan base for this European league. Wait too long and you miss that generational connection. Launch too early and you don't have the infrastructure ready. But what nobody's really grasping yet is how this affects the NBA itself. This European League isn't separate from the NBA, it's an extension of it. Silver has been clear that this is NBA basketball being played in Europe, not European basketball with NBA branding. That means NBA rules, NBA officiating standards, NBA pace of play, NBA style of basketball. But it also means something way more significant. It means the NBA is about to become a truly global league, with multiple divisions operating simultaneously across continents. Imagine playoff systems that could eventually include European champions playing American champions. Imagine draft systems that draw from this European league as a proven professional competition rather than just college ball. Imagine trade scenarios between NBA teams and NBA Europe teams. We're not talking about exhibition games or preseason tours anymore. We're talking about integrated professional basketball where the best European players aren't leaving Europe to join the NBA, they're playing NBA basketball in Europe. And that's going to change how American basketball operates too. When your domestic league suddenly includes teams in Madrid and Berlin and Belgrade, every business decision becomes international. Every broadcast deal, every scheduling consideration, every player development strategy, it all gets exponentially more complex and more valuable. Here's the part that's going to shock people when they realize it. Look, let's be honest about what this really is. The NBA generates about $8 billion in revenue annually. European basketball, all leagues combined, generates maybe $2 billion. The NBA isn't looking at Europe thinking, how can we help? They're looking at it thinking, how do we get our hands on that $2 billion plus the growth potential? But here's why it's brilliant instead of just predatory. They're not trying to destroy European basketball culture. They're trying to monetize it while keeping it authentically European. These teams will still play in their national leagues, they'll still represent their cities and countries the way European sports clubs always have, but they'll also be part of this massive NBA-backed continental competition that brings American sports business expertise to European basketball passion. The fans get better basketball, better production values, better international matchups. The players get better salaries, better exposure, better career opportunities. The NBA gets European basketball's fan base, television markets, and talent development systems. It's not extraction, it's integration. And that's what makes it so dangerous to anyone who thinks they can compete with it. By 2030, we might be looking at a basketball world that's completely different from anything we've ever known. The NBA could be operating professional leagues on multiple continents, with player movement, draft systems, and playoff structures that make today's basketball ecosystem look quaint. European players who never come to America could still be global superstars. American players could spend their entire careers in Europe without it being seen as a step down. The Basketball Champions League, EuroLeague, all these existing competitions, they either become feeder systems for the NBA's European operation or they become irrelevant. And here's what really keeps other sports leagues up at night. If this works, if the NBA successfully pulls off global league integration, they won't be the only ones trying it. Football, soccer, every major sport is going to be looking at the NBA model and wondering how to replicate it. But there's something else happening here that goes way beyond sports business. American basketball culture and European basketball culture are fundamentally different. In Europe, teams represent cities and regions in ways that go back generations. In America, franchises are businesses that can relocate based on market conditions. This NBA European League has to somehow honor European basketball culture while implementing American business practices. That's not just a logistical challenge, it's a cultural negotiation that's never been attempted at this scale. If they pull it off, they're not just creating a new basketball league, they're creating a new model for how American basketball culture and European basketball culture can coexist and amplify each other. If they mess it up, they risk alienating European basketball fans who feel like their sport is being colonized, while also confusing American fans who don't understand why the NBA is suddenly responsible for basketball in other countries. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the timeline couldn't be tighter. By 2030, we'll know whether Adam Silver orchestrated the most successful sports business expansion in history, or whether the NBA overplayed their hand on the global stage. But based on everything we know about Adam Silver's track record, about the NBA's business acumen, about the partnerships they've built and the timeline they've chosen, this isn't just going to work. It's going to change basketball forever. And the really crazy part, most fans still think this is just about adding some teams in Europe. They have no idea they're watching the NBA transform from an American league with global reach into a global league that happens to be headquartered in America. The game is about to get a lot bigger and a lot more complicated and a lot more interesting than anyone's ready for.